This is part C of the KHOODEELAARTV television channel being broadcast online only from London, UK within quotation marks at 13:15 hours GMT, Sunday, 18th of April 2021. And the space given by the Mail on Sunday and the other racist outlets on the feud between the princes, Harry and Wills, is incredible. And they're talking too much about the monarchy. Far too much. And they've got a piece on page 26. Ex-Labour Minister and Guardian Chief Lord Miners faces lobbying questions. Now, all the references to David Cameron's corruption, all the chat and chatter has been like a mechanical delivery. Like the separate newspapers don't actually exist as separate entities, but that they are separately titled sewers carrying the same rubbish. And the rubbish is of denial of the truth. So that's the Fleet Street papers, but we shall talk about Fleet Street rubbish as sewers more in this part. And now they're looking for Labour Party's number 10 moles taking revenge on Boris Johnson for Dominic Cummings' war on Whitehall chiefs. So they're saying that the permanent post holders in the so-called civil service, which is not civil service at all, it's uncivil service, right from the beginning. And the uncivil service is being linked with, which has got two items. One is titled Hunt for Labour's number 10 moles, taking revenge on Boris Johnson for Dominic Cummings' war on Whitehall chiefs. and the other is the hunt for red throat. That is the piece that they are saying is identifying the moles. So they are blaming the moles, not the corruption, not the criminality. And there is a piece also on another page which is trailed on this page, page 33. Now probe Dave's 700 million China deal. Now the £750 million deal that David Cameron made with China, of course, has not been mentioned until now. But this should have been investigated as soon as it was revealed a few months ago, or maybe a year ago. Sharon Osbourne, the denier of racism, because she lined up with Piers Morgan, and from across the Atlantic, she sent Piers Morgan solidarity against Piers Morgan's departure from ITV, and she solidarized with Piers Morgan on the campaign that Morgan has been running against Meghan Markle. The entire episode, or the many episodes in the entire series of controversies and claims and counterclaims about two of Diana's two children, let's say the publicly identified ones, not any children that she might have had that may not have been yet publicly named and identified, but these two are the ones that were born to her while she was married. She was married to Charles Bryan, and the focus has been on these two. And what has happened when the establishment in the Buckingham Palace wanted to ditch Harry because he married Meghan, the entirety of the British Fleet Street and the media turned on Harry as revenge, because they didn't want, well, they're the racists in the royal family, didn't want Harry to marry a woman of mixed parentage or mixed race parentage. Although it is quite clear that genes don't necessarily always produce identical kind of offspring that can be identified or traced to a particular racial or ethnic kind of origin. I mean, Meghan Markle looks much more white than she looks black. But the fact that her mother is African origin is the one that is at the bottom of the center of the contention against her. And they didn't want anyone in the royal family that, officially at least, that came from a mixed race parentage. And all the racists in the media, including Andrew Neil, the brylopat, and the racist Alistair Stewart of the ITV. These racists rushed to Pierce Moron's side and gave him support and solidarity. And some of these racists who have rushed to Pierce Moron's side have been claiming that they have been themselves victimized and threatened and attacked because they supported Pierce Moron. Now, this is not true, especially not true about Sharon Osbourne, because Sharon Osbourne was having difficulties with the American employer television network or company way before Meghan Markle and Harry gave the interview, or the news became available that this interview was going to be aired. So Sharon Osbourne is now inventing a kind of status of being a victim, a target of what she's saying. She's saying that she was getting death threats, and they said, "We will poison your dogs." And there is a big interview with Sharon Osbourne in the EU magazine. Now that is the promotion of Sharon Osbourne's victimhood, being a victim, and she is denying that she is racist. She had no reason to attack Meghan Markle or Harry, but she has found the perfect excuse and vehicle to ride on the back of this. This is the Pierce Moron and Sharon picture. And all these racists have now surfaced with whatever baggage they had. And she says she doesn't want her legacy to be she was a racist. She doesn't want that. Now, there is a problem there, the little problem of the facts. Because if she doesn't want her legacy to be that of a racist, then why did she jump on the bandwagon of the biggest racist Fleet Street coup that Moron and the other racists have organized? Because the targeting of Meghan Markle on every count is false on the facts, because Pierce Moron has said that he understands and respects and recognizes mental health issue as a very serious and difficult one, and that he would never belittle people who are suffering from mental health and so on. But he makes an exception. He says that anything Meghan Markle says about anything, he simply doesn't believe. Now, we don't know what actually happened between him and Meghan Markle when he dishonestly and cravenly tried to befriend her. I mean, he has been married several times, and he has had many girlfriends or whatever, and he has been married with Celia Walden for a significant number of years. So what on earth was he doing, trying to befriend Meghan Markle and then spilling a completely non-existent bean? When she stopped talking to him, he went wild and he started accusing her of all sorts of things which completely are baseless. He has not produced any evidence. So what moron is saying is that he doesn't have to have any evidence against Meghan Markle. It is enough that she is black. That is what he is doing. And what is happening with these criminals? Look at the spread of it. Corruption dominates British government and councils. Because Cameron plotted and set up a kind of deal that totally brazenly abused his time as Prime Minister. So it's criminal offense because he was lying. That is the thing. He was doing fraud. And he was breaking the oath. Nobody is mentioning the oath. Or have they stopped taking oaths when they take office? And the BBC is putting too many quotations around words, not to come across as being straightforward and giving negative news about Boris Johnson. And when Boris Johnson was in post as Mayor of London, this deal, which is Greensill Farm, got a London deal while Boris Johnson was mayor. Now, this is not Greensill itself, it's a farm. And it says the finance company, backed by Les Greensill, negotiated a lucrative contract with Transport for London while Boris Johnson was mayor. And the businessman was working as an advisor in number 10. They're everywhere. And then there is this anti-labor item about Starmer's ally awarded six-figure contract by his ex-lover's counsel. And then there are details about various transactions and financial gain by this advisor to Starmer. And the whole point is that the country is corrupt. And Starmer is in the process. I mean, he has been in the process for the last, exactly a year, I think. April, he took over from Corbyn in April 2020. So Starmer has been aware of and probably involved in sleaze and corruption of his own. And there is something very uneasy being developed. And the uneasy thing is that the West and Britain are maintaining a war-like hysteria. And they're poking at everything that they can find to provoke a war. That's what is going on. And as the minority of one on the Daily Mail, Peter Hitchens is talking about that. There is a piece about the COVID infection rate doubling in India. And Caroline Graham writes a pro-racist piece about America. Now, that's not taking account of the fact that black men are being murdered by police in the USA. If they had that item on a two-page spread, then that would make sense. But they're still in denial. And here is a piece by a woman called Mary Harrington, saying, "Why are social justice warriors backing men who pay for sex over the women who are abused and exploited?" Absolutely correct question. But this is being treated as a minority, just one opinion by one woman. What should happen is that sexism and racism must be made daily topics, 24/7 topics for serious investigation and reporting. And here is a piece about a young woman who died of anorexia. And they're saying the NHS failings that cost Nikki her life. And on the next page, why did they send her home from hospital with no support when she was just 5 stone? Now, this is the piece that reminds of the 11-year-old Tar Hamlet's child, 11-year-old child, Nasima Begum, who was sent from the Royal London Hospital in Whitechapel, was sent home only a few hours before she died. She was sent home to her home in Christian Street by the Royal London Hospital Children's Unit, wrongly and irresponsibly claiming that she was okay enough to go home. When she got home, she got too seriously ill and urgently needed to be returned to hospital. And that is when the ambulance was called and the ambulance failed. It was too late. The ambulance came too late. And the child, Nasima Begum, died. So what we're looking at in the papers today is that nothing is functioning. This is as we said, because of the corruption overload in terms of the coverage of the so-called lobby by Cameron. The question of corruption hasn't been mentioned. It has been kind of hinted at and treated as a secondary importance issue. It's not. No one in post, in power, in authority, so-called, in position of responsibility, is doing their job and not doing their job properly. And they're not being held to account. We shall be coming back to all of these topics in due course, of course. Now going to an international topic, and also local and national. Welfare of sick animals. As we have said earlier in the week, treatment for sick animals should be made free. And there should be a proper health service for the world's sick animals. And the costs of the treatment should be met by the public. And there is a beginning here. If you look at the billionaires, who among them have owned trillions dollars worth of wealth. Now the question is, what do they need that money for? No single individual needs more than the daily course of living. And if they need emergency kind of funds for special indulgences, then even that would not cost millions, let alone billions, let alone trillions. So that wealth must be made available to provide the absolutely free and first class and on time treatment for all the world's sick animals. And number two, animals that belong to people and are cared for by people, looked after by people who don't have the means, but who are absolutely as heartbroken as anybody else would be when they can't find the money to pay the vet's costs. That must be absolutely prohibited, banned, and cruelty to animals must become a service, the world service, to stop cruelty and abuse of animals everywhere. Now that goes with the program to save the planet, address the issues of climate at every level. And all the money that is being carried by these people should be made available to these causes for the preservation, safety of the animals, and helping their owners and their keepers, and helping the planet. And as a parallel to that, health service right across the world for human beings should be radically and urgently established. And the United Nations must be made to deliver the founding aims of opposing war and wars. And anything in society that foments hatred between people must be banned. And education must be established. There is no education currently to oppose war, oppose hatred, oppose the cruelty. So this is our kind of draft statement to our setting up a world service for the animals, sick animals, and the related issues of health of the animals and safety of the animals must be delivered, addressed every day, right across the world. It's a big, big task, but this is the task that the world needs to undertake. We shall be, of course, continuing this discussion, and we shall be doing this on a daily basis. Now, Johnson is being warned that he would lose the red wall voters if he doesn't deal with the sleaze crisis. And the Observer is saying that Labour ramps up pressure on Rishi Sunak, the finance minister, over Greensill calls with Cameron. And Bernard Junkin, who is the chair of the Public Administration Committee in the House of Commons, and who is an extremist Brexiteer, and a racist, has been given a space here to do a kind of token piece in the Observer, page 7, which is headed, "The line between public service and private gain is shamefully blurred." Now, that is stupid. This man is a racist and an idiot because his comments about public service and society and everything have been ignorant right from the beginning. And he's in denial because what he's saying here, only because he is the chair of that committee, is he given that space by the Observer. Otherwise, the contents of what he says don't actually merit any platform. And the pandemic is growing at alarming rate because they're saying the global death toll passes 3 million as pandemic grows at alarming rate. And this is written by somebody called Robin McKee, science editor. And there is another piece headlined or headed, "British families took bigger hit than European households." And let's see a bit more of this. And there is another piece here in the Observer. The language of stoogery by this devout anti-Muslim, Muslim named kind of stooge, Kanan Malik, continues to remain in denial of the Muslims as the targets of the hatred around the West. It is headed, "By demonizing refugees, Denmark reflects a panic in social democracy." He could not be more in denial and more in stupidity. It doesn't actually tell the truth about what is going on there. Denmark is targeting Muslims, and Denmark is being racist. Refugees does not necessarily mean that at all. And here is that another piece in the Observer there. "Fire and rehire tactics rife at workplaces that are in profit, and they are claiming COVID cash." And there is this piece on the Tony Sewer's report. The trade unions are saying that the number 10 race report is an insult to workers. Union leaders claim. Now that is and again, women and girls have been the main victims of the latest so-called Islamist terrorist attacks in Mozambique. And they are speculating about French fascist Le Pen. And they're saying, could Le Pen finally triumph with her third tilt at the presidency? And there is a rare piece here by Simon Tisdall, who said that Netanyahu takes a dangerous gamble with Iran. And there is a piece about this Turkish-German lawyer, Seyran Ati, subject of a new documentary, tells Harriet Sharud death threats won't stop her fight for gender equality. Now that is predictable, because compared to the number of women being denied gender equality in Muslim societies, let's say, the proportion and the numbers of Muslim women being denied as human beings in the Western countries and societies is far bigger. And these writers and the documentary makers don't mention the connection. They never do. And as long as they don't do that, they lose any claim to be objective and fair and genuinely for gender equality in Muslim societies. Because what we are looking at in the papers, let's say the Observer, this is the kind of Sunday version of the Guardian. And it has got, although the Guardian has degenerated to the right a lot in the last 20 years, the Observer has retained quite a few of its pretensions to being kind of less racist than the rest of listed. But remember what I'm saying, that is a pretension. that it is not as racist as the rest of listed. It is, but the pretension says that it isn't. Now here is the Observer magazine, and it says life's better outside. Of course it is. And there is no sign in the Observer magazine of poverty, racism, homelessness, corruption, lack of access to remedy through a court system. It's a fantasy world that is manufactured and invented on the perpetuation of a fantasy that is based on denial of the reality of discrimination, corruption, criminality, and all the bad things in society and in government. And there is a continuing treatment of Brenda, the Queen Elizabeth II, as almost a saint. And there is this piece in the I newspaper, completely stupid. If ever a nation mourned, I think it has been today. I mean, where is the nation? Most people have not done so. So we shall be continuing on all these topics and more in the next editions.